Alright, so using this simple PHP project, I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and accept online payment. So let's say you want your customer to make a payment. They click the make payment button and then they'll be redirected to this payment page where they will fill out the necessary information and then click on the pay button. Alright, so after filling out the information, just click on pay and your payment has been made. All right, so this is what we'll be working on. So to achieve this particular functionality of accepting payment or allowing your customers to make an online payment, you can simply just sign up for a Stripe account. It is free to sign up and set up your Stripe account. Alright, so for this project, I'll be making use of the Stripe API, which you can go to GitHub and read up some more about it. Now, to include the Stripe API and to be more specific, to include the Stripe library in my project, I'm going to use Composer to install the Stripe library directly within my project. So for those who don't know, Composer is a dependency manager for PHP. So if you're working with PHP libraries and framework, then I would suggest that you install Composer because it will come in very handy, and it is very handy for this particular project in which we are trying to install or include the Stripe library within our project. Alright, and I'll be making use of Bootstrap as well, just to add some cards and style buttons for this particular project. So I'm using Bootstrap for my styling, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Alright, so once you sign up for Stripe, you can go to the dashboard. Now, the dashboard area is very useful. In particular, I want to point out one thing here, right? Now, we have what we call our API key that we will need from Stripe, and in particular, we will need the secret key. Now, for me, my secret key is right here, but if you're not seeing yours, then you can click on the developers option here, and then just click on API keys, and you'll be seeing your publishable key and your secret key. So once I'm ready, I'm going to grab my secret key from here. But before I do so, I just want to set up some PHP files. Well, set up my project folder with 3 PHP files, and then we will go from there. Also, just to mention, from the home section of our dashboard, if you scroll, you will see your Stripe docs. Now, this is very useful in terms of how to create your code, how to set up your projects, and so forth. All right, so when you navigate to Stripe docs, under the payments section, you will see a guide to integrate Stripe's payment APIs. Now, the one that we will be using is this one here to accept online payment. Now, if we click on this option, you will see some sample code presented here to the side. Now, because I'm using PHP, I am on the PHP option, but whichever programming language you are using, you can select that, and you will see the sample code that you will need to use to set up your Stripe API, and you can download the sample code as well. Now, there are a few options here. So for checkout, this is the code that I'll be using for my checkout section. Now, when I set up my project, I will walk you through this a little bit more. Now, for the mode, this is payment because we're accepting online payment. You can set up another file that is called secrets, and this is where you would store your secret key, which I mentioned earlier. There is a checkout file as well, which you can always copy this and utilize it. And there is a success as well, which is basically telling you that your payment is successful and so forth. And then there's another one for canceling also. Right, so I'm going to use this as my guide, or this is what I use as my guide to set up my project. Right, now what I'll do is once I am finished creating my version of this, I will make my code set available to you so you can download it and you can basically copy it if you want to and make changes, right? But this is what I'm using as my guide. So check out um, another checkout form, which I'll be calling mine index and a success file. So a checkout file, an index file, I'll be calling mine index, and a success file. So I'll have these three files. For the secret key, I'll just put it directly in my project, and I will not necessarily set up the cancel option, no, but again, you can always use this as a guide to do that, right? All right, very importantly as well, under the Stripe docs, the supported currencies is very important for you to be familiar with. No, you might be creating your project or creating your application to deal with currencies from different places um, all over the world, right? Now, as stated here, you can charge customers in one of more than 135 native currencies. And if we scroll down, we'll see the different currencies here. Now, for me, I'll be using JMD, which is Jamaican dollar, and you can use whichever standard currency you want to use. USD is a very popular one, that's US dollar, right? So you can always choose which currency you want to use. All right, so I am working inside VS Code as my development environment, and I have this folder created and opened in VS Code. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first include or install the Stripe library inside my project folder so I can utilize the Stripe API within my project. Now, to do that, I'm going to open a new terminal, all right, and then I'm going to use Composer to basically set up my Stripe library. And to do that, I simply type Composer require Stripe slash Stripe PHP, and once I press enter, it will go ahead and set up the necessary files for me. All right, so this vendor folder right here, it contains my Stripe library and everything that I'll need to utilize Stripe within this particular project. All right, now that my Stripe library is a part of my project folder, I'm now going to go ahead and create three files using this Stripe docs code snippet as my guide, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an index.php file, and my index PHP file will basically be this. So for some persons, this could be like your shopping cart, right? Where you view the item and then, the customers can make a payment or purchase the item. So this will be my index.php file. All right, so let me go ahead and create a new file calling it index.php. All right, now let me just spin up a boilerplate for my index file. All right, and I'm going to grab the Bootstrap link and place it inside here so I can utilize the Bootstrap card and the other Bootstrap classes just for styling purposes. Alright, so I've added my Bootstrap link, a Bootstrap card, and a form here with a clickable button. Alright, so this index page is the first thing that you will see with the make payment button, which is this page right here. Now, next, I'm going to create a checkout page, again using the code snippet from the Stripe docs as my guide. All right, so here I'm going to create a new file and call it checkout.php. All right, going back to the Stripe docs and under their checkout.php um, example, right, we will need to include the autoload.php from the vendor folder. I'm not going to create this secrets.php file, but we could. All right. I'm just going to include my secret key directly into this checkout.php file. Other things that we will need to specify is the line item. So for example, price, we need to um, product name, quantity, and so forth. We definitely need to set the mode, and the mode for us will be payment because we're accepting a one-time online payment. We need to specify the success URL, a cancel URL, and basically set the header for the HTTP request and what we want to happen once the payment is made. Right, so basically again this would be my guide. So I'm going to start by including the autoload.php file. Alright, so to use the autoload, I'm going to say require, well, I need to open my PHP block first, so let me do that. And then I'm going to say require. Alright, and this is specifying again that I'm using the autoload file from the vendor folder, which is right here, right? Next, I'm going to create a variable to store my secret key, right? And your Stripe secret key, you can find that on your dashboard. So I'm going to grab my secret key now and include it here. All right, so back on my Stripe dashboard, where it says developers, to the bottom left corner, I'm going to click on that. Where it says API keys, I'm going to click on that. And my secret key is right here. I'm going to reveal my secret key, click on it to copy it, and then I'm going to paste this directly into my checkout.php file. All right, so I paste my secret key, so we are good to go. And again, the secret key is needed to link our project back to our Stripe account that we would have set up. It is also important to mention that I am using Stripe in test mode, right? So that is important. We are basically just, well, what I'm doing is just seeing if it actually works in terms of making the one-time payment and so forth before I go ahead and include this in an actual application. All right, now that we have set our secret key, we now need to, well, included our secret key, we now need to set the Stripe API. And we do this by saying slash Stripe. So it's slash Stripe, and then we call the set API key function, and we pass the variable that is storing our API key to that. Right. Next, we need to establish the checkout session for our project. And for this, I'm going to simply go ahead and create a variable called checkout session. And I'm going to utilize the create function to basically create the checkout session. All right, so again, this code example, you can find it on the Stripe docs section. Now, for the checkout session, I need to establish the mode, and the mode that we are using is payment. You can also use a subscription mode as well if you're doing subscription payment or collecting payment from your subscribers. All right, so your checkout session will look like this. The mode, as I said, it's payment. The success URL, which I'm going to create a PHP file called success.php, and our cancel URL, I'm just going to set the cancel URL for it to go back to the index page. The local, I'm setting that as auto, so it will pick up whichever region I am currently in. You could set this to, let's say, um, Spain or the UK, Europe, whatever the case is, but I leave it as auto, so it will automatically pick up whichever region that I am in, right? So the local here is basically the region that you are located, right? Now for the line items, I'm setting the quantity as 1, the price data, the currency that I'm using, or the currency format or standard that I'm using is JMD for Jamaican dollar. You could put USD here if you want to use US dollar. And for the unit amount, now this is very important, right? For the unit amount, I want the item to cost $12,000 and 12 cents. Now to do that, this is how you will write it. All right, so this is how you will write it. $12,000 and 12 cents. And again, if you go to the Stripe docs under the currency standard section, there's more explanation there in terms of how the unit amount work, right? And in terms of the product data now, I am just setting this as the name. So whenever we go to checkout, I will see this as the cost. This will be my currency, and this will be the name of the product that the customer is paying for. Now, it could be a case where you have a shopping cart, and if they press to increase the quantity, then this can go from, let's say, 1 to 2. But for that, we'd have to create a variable and then assign this key to the variable. And it could be the same for this as well if it's coming from another source apart from being written behind the code. All right. But again, for this, we're just keeping it simple, and I'm just using the Stripe docs as my guide. Now finish off the checkout.php file by setting the HTTP response code, and the response code here we're setting it as 303. All right, so we utilize the HTTP response code function, and we set the response code to 303, which is basically saying that our resource that we are trying to utilize or we're trying to use has been temporarily moved to a different location or a different URL, and that different URL is specified in our header function right here. Right, so that is the entirety of the checkout.php um, file. And again, you can compare what is here with what is in the Stripe docs. Right, and finally, I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call it success.php. And the purpose of that file is once the payment has been made successfully, then we will be taken to the success.php file. Right, so I'm going to create that file now. All right, and for my success file, I'm just going to place a card again from Bootstrap with just an image and some simple text. All right, so let me go ahead and set that up now. All right, so for my success file, again, I have my Bootstrap link right here. I have my card right here with an image that I'm calling payment success and some information, payment information, and basically telling the user or the customer that their purchase was made. All right, so that's basically the success page. So again, on the index, it will show the item that we want to purchase with a button to make the payment. Now, the button is written inside of a form element, and for the form element, the method attribute is set as post, and the action attribute is set as checkout.php, which means that once we click this submit button, it will take us to our checkout.php file, and this checkout.php file will basically bring up the Stripe page for us where we can go and make the payment. Right? Now, once the payment is made successfully, we will then be taken to our success.php file with this message on it, basically telling the user thank you and that their purchase was made. All right, so let's test out our application. All right, so first off, let's start with the index page, which is what we're seeing right here. All right, now once we click the make payment, we are taken to the checkout page. Now, this checkout page, it wasn't created by us. The only thing that was set up by us is this part of it right here, where we name the item and we set the cost. All right, so let me show you in the checkout.php file where this information is coming from. All right, so in our checkout.php file, you can see the unit amount here, which is basically what we're looking at right here. And in terms of this description, you can see that right here in terms of the name, right? Product data. That's what we're looking at. And the currency is in JMD. Now, the rest of this particular page, all right, that was created because we included the fact that we are using Stripe checkout. So this basically created that page for us. The only thing we added was the price or the unit amount and the name of the item which is being purchased or paid for, right? Now, all we need to do now is to enter some um, information. So, for example, email, and this is basically validated for us already. So it's validated for valid email. All right, so that is good. Now, another cool thing I like when it is in test mode, we have a default or a dummy credit card number that or card number that we can use. That is 4242 42 42 42 42 42 42. Right? Now with this card number, you can go ahead and make your purchase. And you can also enter the expiry date for the card, and you can enter any date that is in the future. So for example, I'm going to say 02 and then 29. That's when my card expires. And then any 3 digit for your CVC. I'm going to enter 123, and then you just enter a card holder name. Because the local or the region was set to auto, basically detects where I am at currently. And if you want, you can always change that, right? No, again, because this is set to auto based on my current region or location, it will show up here, right? Now, once all information is entered and it is valid, you can go ahead and make your payment. And then we will be redirected to our success.php page, which is basically telling us that the payment was successful and thanking the customer for their payment. All right, and once I click on browse more, it will basically just take me back to my index page. So as I said, using Stripe is a very easy way to include payment option in your web application. Now, Stripe might not be used in every country, so you can just check to see if your location allows you to accept payment, or the country that you are in, you can check to see if it allows you to accept payment using Stripe. Right? But from a development standpoint, I just wanted to walk you through this process, which is fairly simple. And again, if you utilize the Stripe docs the right way, then you shouldn't have any issues setting up your application to accept payment using Stripe. I'll make this code snippet or the different code snippets that I wrote, I'll make it available for you to view and utilize as freely as you want to, right? But that is basically it for this little demonstration.